of Representative Committee on Police Affairs on the 2020 Budget Defense of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund held on the 11th February 2021 in room 215, Senate Wing, National Assembly. Introduction. The Joint Committee of the Senate and House Committee of Representatives met with the top management officials of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund to consider its 2020 budget of 11,352,457,101 naira, 70 kobo, only for the fiscal year 2020, as follows. Projected capital expenditure, 11,351,457,101. Total projected income, 34,984,314,243 kobo. Less projected capital, 11,354,457,101 kobo. Operating surplus, 23 billion. Source of fund. The revenue source of the proposed budget are made up of the following: 0.5% of the total revenue accrued to the Federation account, which is 24 billion. And then 0.5 of total VAT, which represents 10 billion naira. Total revenue, that is 4 billion. See Appendix A for details. Consideration by the Joint Committee. The Joint Committee invited the Executive Secretary and the management team of the Police Trust Fund to the budget defense. While the 2020 budget details were exhaustively discussed, observations by the committee. While considering the budget of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund, the Joint Committee observed as follows: that this is the first budget of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund since the establishment of the Act come into being in the year 2019. That only the 0.5% of the total revenue accrued to the Federation account and 0.5% of the total VAT were remitted to the Nigerian Police Trust Fund account. That the source of the revenue as prescribed in the Nigerian Police Trust Fund Establishment Act have not met any remittance. That the Nigerian Police Trust Fund should expedite action on the implementation of the 2020 budget in order to meet up with the deadline of the 30th of April 2021. Recommendations by the committee. At the end of the deliberation, the Joint Committee considered the observations and recommended that: 1. The Nigeria Police Trust Fund total project income was 34 billion, but the Joint Committee recommended only 11 billion, which is the capital component of the budget, and will be terminated on the 30th of April 2021, while the balance of the 23 billion will be carried over to the 2021 budget of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund. The purchase of utility vehicles has been replaced with the procurement of the COVID-19 protection kits for the police personnel amounting to 358 million. The sum of 533 million naira will be used to procure drugs and medical equipment for the police personnel, being among the core mandate of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund. The summary of the recommendation are as follows here. Provision of specialized operation vehicles, double cabinet, pickup, van, patrol, 7.6 billion. Procurement of arms and ammunition, 1 billion. Procurement of personal protective gear, bulletproof vests and helmets, 469 million. Procurement of riot control equipment, 1.3 billion. Provision of COVID-19 protection kit for police personnel, 358 million. Supply of drugs and medical equipment for police hospitals, 533 million. Office furniture and equipment, 29 million. Total of 11.3 billion. Conclusion, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The Joint Committee wishes to express its profound gratitude to the Senate and the House of Representatives for the trust or repose on it to consider the Nigerian Police Trust Fund budget. It is in the expectation of the Joint Committee that this recommendation will be helped in reaching the acceptable decision of the matters. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished colleagues.
Comments? Senator Adiola Solomon Olamilekon.
Solomon Olamilekon. representing Lagos West Senatorial District in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, I want to commend the Joint Committee of the Senate and the House of Reps, Committee of Police Affairs, for this document just presented. Mr. President, my observation is in two ways. One, the source of funding. In the first page, which is page 2.0, the source of funding includes 0.5 of the total revenue accrued to the Federation account and the 0.5 of the total VAT account, amounting to 34 billion. In the observation of the chairman, he said that only the 0.5 of the total revenue accrued to the Federation account and the 0.5 of the total VAT were remitted to the NPTF account. That other sources of revenue, we don't know what these other sources of revenues are. Is silent on it. So we don't know, or he needs to bring it, we need to see the other sources so that we know reason why they have refused to abide by the act passed by the National Assembly for not remitting this fund to the Police Trust Fund account. Second observation, Mr. President, the 23 billion surplus that was reported here to be carried over to next year is worrisome, because if the total revenue accrued is 34 billion and the total corresponding expenditure is 11 billion, and total excess revenue of 23 billion will be taken over to last year, it's worrisome. Is it that this fund given to Nigerian Police Trust Fund, they don't need as much as this, or there are no activities or anything that the Nigerian Police Trust Fund needs funds for to be utilized for this particular purpose? So I want the chairman to clarify why they are carrying over an excess of 23 billion out of 34 billion to the following year. I want to know, because that might give room for so much fund to be played around with without no judicious application. I so submit, Mr. President.
Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Halliru Jika. I represent Niger North Senatorial District. Let me join the last speaker in congratulating the chairman of this very important committee, and to say that, of course, this development itself is a major milestone because we have been crying over the years for increased funding for the police to support the fight against insecurity and other criminalities. This definitely is commendable. Without prejudice to the response that will be coming from the chairman, my understanding of the last question by Senator Adiola, this is the 2020 budget. And I believe perhaps the committee is just being cautious to implement what will be relevant before they bring the 2021 budget. So I think if they do justice, we will expect that by the 2021 budget, they will have been able to do, because this is the first budget definitely for this fund. And I think we will be expecting that they will do proper evaluation and assessment of threats and other security challenges in the country, so that they can now bring a more comprehensive budget that will definitely be dealing with the so-called surplus that they have reported now. I don't think the surplus is because there is no need, but I think it will be a function of perhaps they are still doing some evaluation and assessment to understand the needs of the Nigerian police force across the Federation. With these few remarks, Mr. President, I urge that we should support.
Chairman, please respond.
President, in response to the issue raised by Senator Adiola, the first is the issue of the levy. The other source of funding of the trust fund is levy. And when the trust fund approached the Federal Inland Revenue Service, they told them that they are not in charge of recovering levy. So that is where we have the problem. So it is when that issue is resolved, then we will now know how to get that fund. Then the issue of the surplus of the 23 billion, this 2020, we want the Senate to approve only the capital aspect, which the remaining balance have already captured in their 2021 budget, which has already been submitted to us. It's before the committee, sir. So that is it.
Distinguished colleagues, we go to the recommendations on page 3. At the end of its deliberations, the Joint Committee considered the observations and recommended 1. Recommendation 1, the NPTF total projected income was 34,984,314,243 naira, but the Joint Committee recommended 11,354,457,101 naira 70 kobo, which is the capital component of the budget and will be terminated on the 30th of April 2021, while the balance of 23,631,857,141 naira 30 kobo will be carried over to the 2021 budget of the NPTF. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 2. The purchase of the utility vehicles has been replaced with procurement of the COVID-19 protection kits for the police personnel amounting to 358,379,191 naira. Those in favor of recommendation 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And recommendation 3, the sum of 533,894,117 naira 70 kobo would be used to procure drugs and medical equipment for the police personnel, being amongst the core mandate of the NPTF. Those in favor of recommendation 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. And this is, Chairman, this proposed capital project, I think it's only the details of recommendation 1. Is that correct? Okay. I want to believe that this is going to help the police to increase their capacity and, of course, provide better and improved services across the country. This is one of the benefits of what we have passed here, the Police Trust Fund, and I'm sure that the National Assembly will continue to support our security agencies for optimal performance. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly